Hey everybody, welcome to not the first episode of Novice to Legendary, the first in a series of web journals. I'm just going to call it that. Video journal, yeah, vlogs about my really just my journey and process as a beginning role player. So a lot of this experience that I have is with a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I participate in every Sunday night. We actually stream it on Twitch.tv. It's at twitch.tv/ Elmer Fudd Games. That's Elmer Fudd with a double M and a double D. And actually, the guy who runs that channel, Elmer Fudd, that's his online handle. That's actually my brother. And about a week or two before he pulled me into the campaign, he was told they had started it, and it was a homebrew game set in this world that a mutual friend of ours had been building for a number of years, and I guess he had decided it was about time a bunch of people actually played in it, and helped him to kind of flesh it out some more. So it turned out to actually be a pretty good time for me to join in. And actually, the DM is Russell, the DM. He's actually pretty good at finding ways to fit the new characters into the story. Although right now, where he's kind of at his new character limit. But anyways, it took me a better part of the week before my first session before I really decided to just go for it. I mean, I was was interested. I had I've run a few games of Dungeons and Dragons and a couple other systems, which I'll be showing up. Going over a couple of books here just in a little bit. Um, but the tricky part was the main concern I had was just the fact that I didn't really know what kind of character I wanted to play. And I guess that's kind of part of this what this first episode is all about is what to do when you're just starting, what kind of character to play. And honestly, it's kind of a tricky question to answer. How I came up with it was I had just started looking through, and I'll bring it over here. I'd had this, I had the player's handbook for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons for a while. I've actually got all the core books. I thought I'd be running a lot more games, and maybe I will later in the future. Um, but anyways, I've been reading through a lot of the race and class options and whatnot, and I just kind of picked a couple of picked the race and class based off of what I thought would just be kind of interesting to play. Um, you know, I, my brother was hovering over me at the computer while I was trying to figure out what to play because I'm used to playing all the other characters. Like I said, I've run a few games. I've been the GM and DM in a few other sessions, so it's a little different for me to be jumping in just playing one character. Um, so he was what he told me is he's just said, there's two ways you can go about it. One, you can either just play something you're very comfortable with, and a lot of that he's kind of went with as far as what kind of race you wanted to play. Like his character in the campaign is this human fighter named Baheshtur, who was actually a character he came up with for the D&D campaign that I tried to run for him and a couple of others last year. And he decided he wanted to keep playing this character. It's the type of character he was most comfortable playing, and you wanted to have the opportunity to really flesh him out and develop his personality and eventually his backstory. That's a later discussion. Um, so he's like, you could do something that's you're most comfortable with, or you can just pick something. Do like what one of the other a very good friend of his who was also part of the D&D campaign I tried to run last year. His friend kind of went polar opposite approach. And it's just the other thing was just like, you can either play something you're comfortable with, or option number two, just do something way out of left field, way out of your comfort zone, and really challenge yourself. Um, so this friend of ours, you can see him on our Sunday night D&D games. He plays this turtle named Jayag. For those of you who don't know what a turtle is, it's this race that is, as far as I know, has been recently developed in D&D. They're basically human-sized, walking, talking turtles, and he's this character is very uh, is not very bright and is very naive, and you know this, this player has actually said a number of times how almost frustrating it can be playing this character, because he wants to do one thing, but he knows that this character would want to do almost the complete opposite, and would wind up saying the complete opposite. Uh, which I honestly got to commend him for his commitment to sticking to the character and what the character would do. And granted, when you're first starting out, maybe you don't really want to do that. Maybe you just want to create a character that's just very much like you, but maybe it just happens to be an elf or a dwarf or whatever. Um, so, well, it's easier because then you just go, what would I do in this situation? And then you do it. What would I say in this situation? And then you say it. Probably, it'd be a real easy way to get your feet wet. As for me, I kind of did I guess did kind of a blend of the two. My character is this tiefling wizard named Shearzim, who I actually, before really knowing anything about the world I was putting Shearzim in, I decided not only would he be a tiefling, which I admit I also kind of got the I did like a lot of the description of the race in the handbook, how they tend to be very slow to trust because of how the world regards them as half devils and whatnot. Um, so that kind of slow to trust thing, that there's a little bit of me. Sometimes I can be sometimes I've put myself in a position where I've been very trusting and it's bit me in the butt. So usually I'm actually pretty cautious and very about opening up to people and really trusting them. So I was like, that's the type of character I would probably be pretty comfortable playing. So there's that, and I was actually kind of looking forward to at least a little bit of the tiefling hate, the racism and whatnot. Trying to face that and see how I and this character would handle it. And then I was also kind of intrigued by the description of the school of necromancy in the wizard class, where it is actually saying that not all necromancers are evil, but most societies and cultures tend to frown on people using it and raising the dead and whatnot. Um, so that was another bit where I was just, it's partly me being really kind of interested in that, playing in that space and just wanting to challenge myself that way. So a lot of my challenge, what I was looking for a challenge, wasn't necessarily as far as anything as far as necessarily playing a different type of character, but really more being challenged by the world. And I haven't got to see a whole lot of that quite yet. I have a feeling I will, though. Actually, the first session that when I joined in the first session, Russell kind of spelled out what would be going on. The general attitude towards tieflings and kind of their part in the world. And I went, oh. they're even worse off than in regular D&D. This is going to be interesting. But really, a lot of what I wound up doing was just filling out the bare bones basics. Going on to D&D Beyond, where we have fill out all our character sheets and whatnot. Just the basics of ability scores, skill proficiencies, backgrounds, personality traits, and all that. Just kind of a quick little thing, just like, okay, this might be, uh, you know, this might make things a little might make for an interesting character to play. And I kind of left it at that for a bit until I got that extra little bit of detail about how tieflings are regarded in this world, and I actually baked that into the backstory that I actually filled out after the session, and you know submitted to the DM, and he freaking loved it. So as far as just starting out, I would just say, even if all you can do is just get all the stats and the basics for whatever system you're playing, you don't have to necessarily have to worry about having like a fully fleshed out backstory yet. Especially if you're playing with a DM who's pretty or in a group who's pretty understanding of new players. I mean, everybody was at one point or another. So you just get the basics in, and then you can kind of fill out his history later. That's actually something that a lot of our group has wound up doing. Um, there have been a couple of instances in the moments in the campaign that have practically forced some of the other players in the group to actually fill out more of their backstories, and they've been playing for they've been doing this kind of thing for years. And this isn't me trying to throwing them under the bus, because they're a fantastic group to play with. But it's just to show that you don't have to have everything worked out for your character right from the very beginning. Like anything in life, the big thing is to actually just start. Just act on whatever you have available at the moment. Just get like the basic stuff worked out, and then move forward and refine things as you go on. So speaking of starting out and filling in the basics, where would you find these that baseline that you need to work with? Well, you can find that in the rule book for whatever game the group happens to be playing. And in our case, it is, once again, Dungeons and Dragons, 5th edition, and the player's handbook has all the baseline character options that are available here. Your core classes, core races, and and some different subclass options and what have you, as well as the rules for how to play the game. It's all it's all right here. Any extra options and whatnot are usually in different supplement books. I know for D&D 5th edition you have Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which has a lot more subclass options, some more spells available for spellcasters, and a lot of random tables that you can use to actually generate some more of your backstory. So you can if you don't want to go, this character's family was such and such size, you can just roll on the tables and just go with the result. Go over those results with your DM. The more material you give him, the better the game's going to wind up being. Alternatively, you may have a system where the core rules are just kind of a generic set, like Savage Worlds here. I actually really love this system. It's because of the customization options and whatnot. So you may have this. You may have this book, and then other books that you may have to pick up depending on what kind of setting you're playing in. like one of their most popular is this Deadlands. It's like this steampunk horror western with a bit of alternate history shenanigans thrown in. And this actually has contains some of the extra like setting specific rules, and then character creation options that are specific to the Deadlands universe, I guess the best way to put it. So you can go in there and give it give those just like a quick read, quick once over, and then you can get maybe get a pretty good idea of what kind of character you want to play to start off with. And maybe if you're like brand spanking new to role playing in general, might be a good idea to it might be a good idea to play pick a class or whatever, depending on what kind of system you're using. That's a little light on complexity. Like for D&D, fighter would be a pretty solid choice for a beginning character. You don't have to keep track of piles of spells and how many spells you can prepare each day and all this other stuff. And those and different School of Magic specific features like you would with a wizard, which wizards can actually be a pretty complicated class to play. I'm probably still not playing it the best that it could be, but I'm not a well. I've been playing. I don't know. I don't really know how to put it. You just have to kind of see for watch our sessions for yourself and kind of determine how well I actually am playing the wizard. And may even have some more discussion on how to play different classes. The usual tropes, and maybe how to kind of turn them on their heads a little bit. Like I've actually done a little bit with Shearzim. But yeah, that's actually the gist of what I have for you in this video is just start. Throw some ability scores and what have you together, and just go for it. It's okay if you don't have everything for your character worked out to begin with. Probably you want to come up with some kind of voice to kind of keep things consistent. But that's really about it. Otherwise, a lot of it you can just fill out as you go along, and working with your DM or with your dungeon master, your game master, or whatever the system happens to call the guy that's actually running the show. So until next time, happy gaming and start.